Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you Glitch's upcoming groundbreaking collection for spring. As you can probably guess by the name, this is inspired by all things spring, especially spring florals, and while I know that might be tiring for some people, I can't help but love the vibe, so I will share more of my thoughts for the end, as well as launch details after some comparisons, but for now, let me just show you the swatches. The first polish in the lineup is called Dewdrop, and it's described as a neon purple jelly base filled with a glowy green shimmer and silver holographic reflective glitters. This had a really nice formula that was super smooth and easy to apply, really nice coverage overall on the first coat. It was a little bit sheer in some spots, but it built up beautifully in just 2 coats alone, where I would say it's definitely opaque enough for me, especially at the shorter nail length. If you have longer nails or a more pronounced free edge, you might want a 3rd coat, but I just don't think it's necessary for this one. And Brie also has a note here that says this polish is made by mixing neon blue and neon purple, so it shouldn't experience the neon purple fade, but we'll just have to see how it lasts. Next up we have Pink Lemonade, which is a muted pink jelly packed with a gold shimmer. You already know I really love this one. I'm such a sucker for a pink base and a gold shimmer, and I thought this one was so pretty. It had another really smooth formula, so easy to apply. It just stays where you put it, and even though it is described as a shimmer, I would almost call it a pearlescent shimmer because, as you can kind of see, there are some slight brush strokes, but it's not that bad where it's like a very pearly polish, but they can be noticeable for sure, so just make sure you're careful with your application. I think this one looks really great in 2 or 3 coats, but it is still going to be a little sheer and show a hint of nail line. Then we have Garden of Eden, and this is a grassy green jelly base with a gold to green to teal aurora shimmer. This one was so stunning. Like, I normally don't love a bright Kelly or grassy green, but this one was so stunning. There's something about the shade of green with this specific shimmer that just worked so well. It had another super smooth buttery formula, again a little bit sheer on the first coat because it is a jelly base, but because this one is a bit darker, especially compared to the last shade, I found it opaque enough for me in 2 coats, though you might still see a hint of nail line. And I would say this is a more traditional kind of shimmer finish compared to the last shade, which leaned a little pearly. Next up we have The Smell of Rain, which is described as a transformative aurora topper. So I actually didn't realize this was supposed to be a topper because seeing it in the bottle, it just looked like a sheer shimmery blue, and that's how I'm going to be showing it in the video. The first coat is sheer but noticeably blue, so I think this would really only work as a topper over much darker colors, maybe over some mid-tone shades, but it's gonna affect the color underneath a little bit. But I actually really love this one on its own. I know some people are gonna say it's like so incredibly sheer, but there's something about a super sheer glowy shimmer that just always feels so magical and ethereal to me. The shade of blue is so stunning, the shimmer so vibrant, but the base is a little bit muted and moody, and in combination with the name, it's just evoking that perfect spring rainy day for me. Next we have Seafoam, which is described as a muted teal jelly base with super shifty microflakes that shift from pink to orange to gold to green. At first I was a little confused by the inclusion of this one just because the name and color was giving more summer vibes to me, but I really love it all the same. It's a gorgeous seafoam color. I love the color shift of the microflakes in here. I'm sure definitely giving some familiar vibes, so we'll see the comparison later. But yeah, this one built up beautifully, had a super smooth formula. Another 2-coater for me personally, but because it's a bit sheer, you might want a 3rd. Up next we have Fallen Rose Petals, and this one is described as a rich berry jelly base packed with small flakes that reflect as pink, blue, purple, and orange. Speaking of shades that kind of stood out to me, this one also didn't seem like your typical spring shade, and I just really loved it for that. I'm such a sucker for berry bases like this. It's just so squishy, so lush, a little bit uneven on the first coat because it's so packed with the flakies. You might need to do some dabbing or manipulation, but I found it opaque enough for me again on the second coat, especially because it is a much darker color, and I loved how the flakes glowed against this one. I definitely saw those pops of pink, purple, and orange. Not so much the blue, but that's kind of expected because the base is just so pigmented. So yeah, this one was super gorgeous. Up next we have April Showers, and this is described as a baby blue crelly with subtle flakes that reflect as pink, blue, and purple. This one unfortunately was a bit of a letdown in terms of the formulation for me, where I was definitely looking forward to it in the bottle. I think it looks so cute. I love the vision, but as you can see, the application for this one was just not the best. I think there's just so many of those little flakies in here in combination with the slightly more pigmented crelly base that just doesn't really make for a smooth application experience. I think if this was more of a sheer jelly, it would self-level a lot easier and you wouldn't have this issue, but yeah, you might need to do some more dabbing to get the flakes where you want them. I don't think it looked too bad in the end though. And of course, the next shade is called May Flowers, and this one is a topper with lilac reflective glitters and iridescent flakes that shift between pink, blue, and purple. So I will be showing this over white and black afterwards, but I am going to be building this up on its own first because I thought it was incredibly densely packed and thought it could make for a cool flaky bomb. So as you can see on the first coat, there are a ton of those iridescent flakes, a ton of those little reflective glitters. So it quickly builds up in coverage in just 2 coats, and in 3 coats, I don't want to call it nearly opaque because it is a topper after all, but there are just so many of those flakies that it doesn't look much different in my opinion than a really dense flaky bomb. Though this one obviously has a very, very sheer base, so you will still see your visible nail line in more extreme lighting or more direct lighting. But I think this would look so amazing built up in 2 coats over a sheer purple jelly, for example. Here it is under flash as well, so you can see just how sparkly this is. I was so enamored with it. I mean, obviously it's that combination of blue, purple, and pink. It's just so good every single time. And here, layered in 1 coat over white and black, you can see just how much it transforms. Over white, I know it has that kind of unflattering pea color almost, but call me crazy, I feel like it kind of works. But I loved this over black. Then we have Carnations in Bloom, and this one is described as a white crelly base with orange iridescent flakes. I'm not sure how well you saw it in the bottle, but the majority of the flakes ended up sinking to the bottom because hopefully you can see on the nail that there are quite a few of those really large shards in here. So you might need to flip the bottle upside down to get more of those out if that's what you want, but you get a decent amount of those mid to larger size flakies as well. The formula on this was really nice. It's just a milky white jelly, so as expected it is going to be a bit sheer, but I found that it self-leveled really nicely, so it'll look nice no matter how many coats you do. Though for my 3rd coat I went in a little too heavy-handed, so I got some pooling on the sides of my nail, as you can probably tell, so apologies for that. But yeah, I love the opalescent vibe on this one. But the other cool thing about this polish is that it's actually a UV polish, so once you're in direct sunlight it transitions to this warm fuchsia purpley kind of shade. I was only able to get a quick clip of this in direct sunlight, but I thought it looked so pretty. And this is also a glow in the dark polish, so in the dark it has a deeper kind of cobalt blue glow, which I thought looked really smooth and strong. And rounding out the collection is Wispy Wisteria, which is a medium purple jelly base packed with iridescent rainbow glitters. The glitters in this were really interesting. They kind of had a unique shape to them where they were pretty irregular, not your typical hex glitter, but also not your typical flaky shards. So I'm not sure what shape it is, but it overall has that micro glitter look to it. And as far as the application goes, it was generally easy to work with, though I didn't find this one to be as self-leveling as other jelly-based polishes, so it did look a little uneven on the first and I think a little bit on the second coat. So depending on your application, you might be okay with the 2 coats, or you might need to do a third to even it out, but either way, doing a third also deepens the color a bit more. And surprise, this is another glow-in-the-dark polish, though this one is described as glowing a bright green, but I didn't find it to be super strong. And here is my thumb swatch collage of the groundbreaking collection. I really love this lineup and the balance between the softer spring vibes and the more brighter, punchy pops of color. Now for comparisons, we're starting with Dewdrop and looking at it next to a couple of other glitch purples. So first I pulled out Keep Your Heart from last month's Aphrodite collection, as well as I'm Still Alive from the Palestine collection. Keep Your Heart has a purple shimmer, but in more of a bluish base, while I'm Still Alive has a purple base with a blue shimmer, but it's darker overall. I figured I could also show Dewdrop next to Atomic's Ice Out, which was their charity shade I picked up last month, because Dewdrop is what I thought Atomic was going to be as far as the bright purple base with a green shimmer, though the shimmer definitely does stand out more in Atomic, so that's a plus there. But as far as another closer comparison, I also pulled out Holo Taco's Electric Sweetener, which is one of their crushed holos from a few summers ago. I know Dewdrop was described as being a neon purple base, but I feel like it's kind of not neon, especially compared to Holo Taco, which that one I don't think is described as neon, but it just looks a lot brighter. Next for Pink Lemonade, I pulled out Enchanted Peony and Resistance from Glitch because I thought both of these were kind of a combination, or Pink Lemonade rather is a combination of these two. Enchanted Peony is a much brighter bubblegum pink shade, but more in that true shimmer crowley kind of finish, while Resistance is a little closer in color, but it has this sort of micro glitter formula. And for reference, here is Pink Lemonade next to Mooncat's Sand Viper, which I thought was going to be more similar, but as you can see, Sand Viper has more of a nude blush kind of jelly base with a coppery orange shimmer instead of gold. I think the closest shade that I have to this is Lurid's The Refuge of Your Presence, which is a light pink jelly base with a very strong gold shimmer. I feel like the shimmer is almost overpowering in the Lurid by comparison. Next for Garden of Eden, I of course had to pull out Mooncat's Serpents of Eden, as well as Alien Invasion, both of which are these shimmery greens, Alien Invasion having a little bit of a tealy blue sort of jelly base. So from the bottle alone, it definitely looks like Serpents of Eden is closer. I think they have the almost near exact same shimmer color, though it looks a bit more densely packed in Mooncat, and the base is also a lot darker, so I wouldn't call these dupes. I would say Garden of Eden is almost an in-between of these two formulas. Next for The Smell of Rain, this one immediately reminded me of Dream Opal from last month's Aphrodite's Kiss collection, being that same super sheer blue base, but obviously Dream Opal has a more pinky, fuchsia-leaning shimmer color. There is also a slight difference in the shimmer particle size, where it looks a little more finely milled in The Smell of Rain, but I would still call these sister polishes. And here is The Smell of Rain next to Holo Taco's Wireless Mode, or at least my swatch stick of it, which is another sheer blue with a glowy shimmer, but the shimmer in Holo Taco is more green. And lastly, I remembered I had Ethereal's Lorraine, which is another super sheer shimmery blue, though that one is in a much more sheer, almost purple tinted base, so not quite dupes. Next for Seafoam, I of course am showing this next to Mooncat's Tectonic Shift, which was one of their dearly departed shades this year. It has a seafoam green base with a micro flaky kind of finish that goes from pink to orange to gold. So they virtually have the same color description, and on the nail they look nearly the same. I would say that Mooncat is maybe a hair or two darker, but I feel like the shimmer color is practically the same, again going from that pink to orange to a strong yellow gold in very extreme lighting, as you can see here. So I think I would call these dupes. Then for Fallen Rose Petals, the closest glitch that I had to this was Death of Peace of Mind, which is a magnetic. It kind of has this darker charcoal black base, but the magnetic shimmer is also red, so it's nowhere near it. For actual closer shades, I did immediately think of Prism Parade's Fangtease from their Bloodlust collection for Valentine's Day. It's another purple jelly base with these glowing iridescent shards, but obviously a much more blue-toned purple. And so the glitch being more red-toned made me think of Fauve's Box of Chocolates from their Valentine's Day collab. That one is a trithermal, so here you can see the slightly warmer color on my thumb, being a much closer match to this berry shade, but in the colder state it gets a little bit darker. The main difference though is that the Fauve has black flakies. Next for April showers, this one reminded me of ILNP's Up Above from one of their spring collections a few years ago. They're similar as far as their cornflower blue bases go, but ILNP is more of that true jelly finish, so it's a bit more sheer, and the iridescent flakies are more of a golden green kind of color, while they're more blue, purple, and pink in glitch. The ILNP also doesn't have nearly as many flakes. And for May flowers, I wanted to quickly show this next to Lavender Haze from last month's collection because I thought they kind of had a similar vibe, but Lavender Haze is more of a true shimmer kind of topper with some reflective glitter. There's no flakies in it at all, so definitely very different visually. I also wanted to show this next to Prism Parade's Heart Like a Riot from their Pride collection last year because that one has this iridescent flaky mix containing blue, purple, and pink with some pops of green, as well as a hollow sparkle in the background. So color-wise, I do think these are the closest, again, in terms of those flaky color combinations, but they do look a bit different on the nail, again, because glitch is just so densely packed. There are just so many more flakies, so that one you kind of can build up on its own, whereas the Prism is definitely a topper. And while I knew it wasn't going to be an exact dupe, I figured I could still show this next to Mooncat's Sugar and Spice Topper, which literally just came out in their Band of Misfits 2 collection. I'm going to be showing these over black because I feel like that's the easiest way to see the colors, and you can see there's just slightly more colors in the Mooncat one, specifically green, and it has a hollow sparkle instead of a reflective glitter, so they have their different vibes and whatnot, but they're both still really, really pretty. And lastly, for Carnations in Bloom, I really don't have anything quite like this one, so I figured the closest shades I could show are Mooncat's Curiosity's Prey, which is another dearly departed, as well as Memento Mori. Curiosity's Prey has a much smaller iridescent flaky mix in different colors, and Memento Mori has the orange, but it's a shimmer instead of a flaky. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Glitch's upcoming groundbreaking collection. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on this release because, like I mentioned in the intro, I'm always gonna love a dainty floral spring vibe. And I really appreciate that it wasn't just the typical like light pinks for spring, but we got some blues and purples and just kind of an overall spring vibe, especially with the greens too. I thought those were super gorgeous. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this color palette, the lineup. It was just so soothing and soft for spring. I think my two favorites from the lineup are The Smell of Rain and Fallen Rose Petals. When I first swatched Fallen Rose Petals, I was just immediately blown away, which I feel like says a lot because, as you might know, I don't usually go for super vampy shades like this time of year, but I love that berry sort of color. I think it's just so seductive, especially with like the flakies and the name. Like, it just really invokes those like fallen rose petals aesthetic, and it's just so beautiful. And I guess it makes sense that I loved it so much because it's so similar to Prism Parade's Fangtease from earlier this year for their Valentine's Day collection. But for the more springy pick, I think I would say that The Smell of Rain is my favorite. It's just one of those dreamy, wispy blues, so sheer and ethereal, but like a little bit moody, but just enough that makes it perfect for spring, because obviously spring is still filled with a lot of cold weather, gloomy, rainy days, and you know me, I'm a big seasonal wearer, and I don't usually love rainy days. I love the sunshine and just feel so alive with it, but I also can appreciate a rainy day, especially in the spring or fall. So I do really love that one. I guess maybe because I'm just really drawn to it right now, like emotionally speaking, but you also just can't go wrong with like a sheer glowy blue. And of course, I also loved Carnations in Bloom because, I mean, even though as a UV polish, it is really cool, and I love the stark contrast between it going from like this milky white to a brighter pinky fuchsia color in UV. Even without the UV aspect, I just loved this base milky white polish with those coppery kind of flakies. It just gives this opalescent vibe, which makes sense why I would love it so much. So if you love these, they are going to be launching this Friday, March 20th at 2 p.m. Pacific time on Glitch's website. And from March 20th through the 27th, $1 from every non-charity polish will be donated to World Food Program. So that includes these, as well as several other polishes on Glitch's website, mainly excluding the Palestine collection, since those benefit the PCRF. Also, as a reminder, I am an affiliate with Glitch too, so if you use my link or discount code PolishedYogi10, you can save 10% off your order while supporting me and my channel. As always, a big thank you to all of you who do support me through that. And speaking of that, I want to give an update because you might remember from last month, I think, I talked about donating my first commission from Glitch to a couple of different GoFundMes from standwithminnesota.com. So I think it was at the end of February, I got my payout for $310. So I split that between 3 different GoFundMes. So while it might not seem like a lot, it also was more than I was expecting to get and to share. So I really want to thank you all for supporting me with that. And I would love to do it again this month. So I'll have the standwithminnesota.com website linked down below, as well as my previous charity haul video, which has so many other links to amazing organizations in the description box if you want to check out more. But yeah, sorry to derail the video a little bit with that. I really hope that you enjoyed my review of these and just this lineup in general. Let me know what your favorites are down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!